Do I have the red thing?
Here we are.
We're live. All right, let's get going. This is our afternoon data center news show, and I'm Amy Palvido, and I have some really cool guests in the house, and we're going to talk all things data centers because, you know, it's a little bit, it's kind of happening. It's kind of happening in this crazy world of ours. Is a little bit of data center activity, just a smidge of data center activity. So I have my guests in the house and I will let them introduce themselves, and I will start with Jay. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Amy. Thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate it. My name is Jay Huzzy. I'm with H5 Data Centers. I'm fortunate enough to be the Director of Sales in Northern California, and I drive sales to all of our data centers in North America.
Woo-woo. Awesome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. And Howie.
Yeah, Howie Berry, Avis and Young, all things data center real estate. Here again for another fun show.
Every week, Howie. Every week.
I love it.
Yep. And our new guest, Mike. Hey, Mike. Welcome to the show. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Amy. Mike Lash with CBRE. I'm also on the data center team, or the digital infrastructure team. I don't know if that's the new word, but like Howie alluded, a lot of powered land and paving the way for a lot more data centers across the United States.
Very cool. Well, at least it's not, when, I don't know if y'all know this story, but when Anthropic first came out, it didn't say it was AI. It said it was computer usage. Yeah, that is such a bad, whoever the marketing people were at Anthropic, that was like dumb. That was like super dumb. Anyway, so yes.
What's Anthropic?
They created Claude, that little AI engine, like it was one of the first ones, but they call it computer usage. So no one knew what the hell it was. It's actually pretty cool. It's got probably one of the best LLMs out there now.
Sounds like an AI result.
It was. Sounds like an AI result. All right.
Answer.
Yes. All right. We're going to kick off the show talking about, because this story just broke, that Biden issues on his way out. What's he got, like 4 days? That's all he's got left, right? Like 4 days. Issues an executive order to let federal lands be used for data centers. So, which I find really interesting. And I don't know if it's a knee-jerk reaction because Virginia, basically, they're not going to let you build another one. I don't know what's happening in Virginia. They don't like it there. But so let's throw that one out to the crowd. What do y'all think about that?
Well,
Go for it,
without this, my knee-jerk reaction, I mean, we certainly need more data centers. And, I think just like maybe like the telecom companies, as these things begin to mature and grow and get to the point where they really are more helpful for the common good of all people, I could see the federal government stepping in a little bit more and saying, this is now, part of our, this is now in the federal sort of landscape of how we help usher in the new digital age. And when we're competing against other countries that maybe have a leg up on us, maybe not, I'm sure that it kind of makes sense. And if you look back at the way that even the railroads, right, they all started off as enterprising companies that kind of became quasi-governmental. So maybe this is the first step in that maturity timeline for us on the data center side. I don't know. That's the first thing I think of, though.
I think about that too. And it'd be interesting to hear from Jay. Do you guys have any government business in your data centers at all?
We probably have some. I'm not really at liberty to discuss it too much, but what we do have is very not to my knowledge what we're doing with them. So I can't answer it.
I think to the point, what I think I could see operators like AWS who have government business taking advantage of that, where other groups might not be as comfortable leasing land from the government. It might be, I don't know, some issues there. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's funny. federal land. I mean, what cracks me up is really the land is not the the scarce factor typically, right? It's the power. So
Yeah.
we'll see what this can turn into, but it may be a first step in a multi-step process. Other than Northern Virginia, maybe say some very, very unique submarkets, land is typically available. Maybe getting the zoning is you do bypass the zoning aspect with federal land possibly, so maybe that's the play too.
And maybe they can just, force people to give them power where other people can't. I mean, I don't know. Don't ask me. I mean, I'm not the U.S. government, but I would assume that they have a little, pull over the power providers.
Well, there's transmission lines too. So running transmission lines, you need to get rite of passage through land. That might be some benefit there to get utility power where it needs to get.
My question would be, are they going to lease the land, or are they going to sell the land?
Lease.
Yeah.
That would be
it was a lease is what I read.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah, which is pretty rare, right? I can only think of one occasion where a hyperscaler leased the land from the federal government. So maybe that was the start of this, but typically data centers, they don't really like the risk of not owning the ground underneath them. So
I thought too.
Yeah,
a lot of money to spend on ground you don't own.
I'd be curious to see how they're going to deal with the environmental aspects of it. If they have, maybe some endangered animal or something on the land, how they're going to deal with that, or, if they're going to do environmental studies to see what the real impact is going to be. So I'm just curious about that aspect of it. Probably a smaller piece of the puzzle, but to a lot of people, that may be a huge aspect of what they're doing here, or why they're doing it here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't want to, well, I was joking with Jay earlier. It's like, you don't want to stick it next to Old Faithful, right? I mean, we don't want to stick it on parkland because that would just not work out, but
your geyser and your data center.
Exactly. I mean,
thermal energy.
A little too hot and wet.
Yeah.
a little too hot. Well, you never know. Like if I find some thermal, I don't know. It's I don't know. It'd be interesting, but we have tons of parkland. I don't think that's the federal land they were thinking of, right?
I doubt it. No, I don't think they're doing parkland. No.
Yeah. If you spend any time just looking at like maps of the United States and looking at all the massive parcels that are out there, the federal government does own quite a bit in certain states that aren't typically data center markets, but it is interesting. I mean, you're talking, hundreds of thousands of acres, and a lot of them are contiguous and wholly owned by the, so I can see that these would be possibly, I don't think these are like building one data center that's 50 megawatts. I'm guessing these are massive gigawatt campuses. Total guess, but that's in markets that we've never seen before, because that's where a lot of that federal land is, right? I'm thinking of places like Mississippi, New Mexico, places where they just have, they were giving away land at one point, right? They're paying people to take the land, right? So it's I'm guessing that those are probably closer to the places that maybe they're, for one reason or another, they want to have data centers, maybe these massive like AI type data centers in those areas that aren't so latency dependent.
Yeah, well, maybe the KKR got a hold of Biden and, because they just made this big, huge investment in the power. And what is it? Ohio and Michigan and wherever else,
I think Indiana.
In Indiana, right? So maybe it's all the federal lands in Indiana and KKR. No, I'm just totally kidding. I'm going to not be a conspiracy theorist today. But it is interesting to see. You got two plays, right? You can either become a data center operator, or you can just buy the power grid. So I don't know if you saw that, but KKR came out and decided that they were going to make an investment into the power grids. Yeah, is that the next play? Is BlackRock and Blackstone and everybody else going to own our power grids at some point? Who knows?
Or do they already?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good
question, Howie.
I don't know. Do they? That's weird. I didn't think you could invest in a utility grid. So that was my first, I was like, what? How can you invest in a public utility? but maybe it's just all private. I don't know. All the ones I'm used to, it's all municipal owned, or they're co-op, or maybe it's the co-op. I don't know. It's really weird. I didn't know our utility grid was up for sale. So
yeah, being in the utility, it reminds me of, you know, the genie, right? You have all this power, like you know, control, but then you also have shackles on, right? You're regulated, and it's just an interesting place to be in. And obviously you need massive dollars to be able to play in that game of the securitization of generation. So we'll see. I mean, if anybody can do it, it's probably some of these larger, like you said, private equity groups, but I don't think there's too many people that can do it. And even if they did, the regulation might be enough to scare them all away.
you would think so. I don't know. Maybe it's just such a big play because we know that the data center market's going to just create more and more demand for power. I'm actually kind of okay if a private company comes in and, like, you know, because they're going to force modernization of the grid, right? They're not going to sit there and most PE, that's all they care about is optimizing everything anyway. So if it's a publicly owned, I don't know. It's interesting to bring private entities into some sort of utility space. I think that's could be good or bad. Could be good or bad. I'm not sure. But we have a news story, by the way. We got into it, and our own Howie Berry was featured. Look at this. Howie Berry was in the news. And do you want to tell us your lovely article, sir?
Yeah, what did I do? I talked about Align Data Center just raised $12 billion. You know, this is standard play for everybody right now. Just raise capital.
Right.
You know, to that point, I think JP Morgan just came out with a projected increased spending in data centers is going to affect the GDP by 10 to 20 basis points in this year, and
That's
this
cool.
2025 and 26, which is literally insane. But yeah, Aligned Woo is grabbing up land, building as quick as possible. They've got 12 billion, and I talked about that, and they're who's the other?
So Aligned, are they just an owner? Are they, is that what
Colo.
Aligned is? Or are they an operator?
Colo operator.
They're an
Colocation
operator too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And they're doing that through a joint venture, like the Powerhouse story, or are they just gonna outright buy?
They're outright developing and operating
Okay.
colocation data centers.
Yeah.
You know, a couple other similar transactions recently. Digital Bridge purchased Yonder Group, and they're expanding hyperscale clients.
Yep.
And then, like you said, KKR Energy Partners also got $50 billion investment in data center power generation projects.
Don't forget about H5 and NovaCap. We just
what happened?
We just partnered with NovaCap in a joint venture to prioritize the development and repositioning of strategically located facilities to meet the growing demand for scalable, high-quality co-location space. And I will say I read that from the news release that we have, the press release, and that is on our site. But yeah, that's the way to move forward in the data center space. Find a partner, and build, own, and operate.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it'll help you scale faster. I think it's like speed to market, right? You're finding any way you can to go as fast as you can, and partnering usually does that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It shows our customers we're in for the long haul as well, that we're, you know, a good partner. We're looking to build and looking to give them space for critical capacity.
Yeah, for sure. That's interesting.
Yeah, you guys are scaling pretty quickly.
We're trying. Our team is hard at work. David Dunn, our COO, is out there pounding the pavement for new space and new acquisitions for us.
Awesome.
Great.
So talking about acquisitions, or the newest state to have a very large facility is Kentucky. And apparently there's a story out today that Powerhouse partnered with somebody on a 400 megawatt data center outside of Louisville. It's interesting because Kentucky's had little ones, right, Howie? But now they're starting to get this.
Kentucky has power. What are we looking for? Power. They have reasonably inexpensive power related to everywhere else, and they're right in the middle. So it's a great play for Powerhouse to pick up some land. I think it's near. I'm confirming the location, but it's in Louisville proper, downtown area is what I understand, but it's still confirming. But 400 megawatts in that market, and we're working on other sites in that area that are getting some attention recently. Other data centers in that market, so it's great to see that.
Yeah, for sure. So is it and this is in the article they were talking about basically Kentucky's like, come on, let's go. I mean, Virginia is going, we don't want you. And Kentucky's like, here you go. We'll roll out the red carpet or blue carpet for you. Come on out.
Another 50-year tax exemption program. And so that's attractive. That's
right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you want to talk about, and so has anybody ever done a study on just where the data center itself is located? What is the economic impact of that? Has anybody, I don't know. Has anybody done that?
You mean as far as like the tax benefit to the county? Or
or anything, any sort of economic analysis based off of locating. You know how they used to do that for employers because it was all based on jobs, but data centers don't bring, or they bring some. There's ancillary, job boons to data centers in certain markets, right? Yeah. But has anybody done an impact study yet?
Well, I think we, we're most of the sites that we're developing are not zoned. So you have to provide those economic impacts to the municipality to be able to have them sign off on the rezoning. So we, if there are state tax incentives available, there's local and discretionary tax incentives that these companies often pursue, and so then you get to see, hey, this is going to be a $6 billion development over the course of the next 10 to 15 years. Here's what that means for your tax digest, and even with incentives in place, most people don't realize those things burn off after like 10 years. So, then you have this incredible ability to receive, franchise fees, tax revenue from property taxes. And so, they're incredible. And then obviously they're not, if you might get that sort of same tax revenue, maybe not, but you would certainly get a bigger impact on whatever other development is. If it's residential, then you're seeing a lot of impact. You have to build a new school, right? If you put 600 new homes somewhere, they're going to need schools. That's going to cost the county and the city. If you have industrial, it's going to need, you need the road improvements and lots of trucks. Where data centers, the resources that you take are oftentimes they're sort of a state-driven resource like power, right? So they don't affect the local community as much. And so they get a lot of the benefit and not a lot of the impact that you would see from other developments. A lot of the counties understand that. And, you're kind of going against some of the misinformation about data center development with the community. But by and large, we're seeing a lot of communities opening their doors to data centers.
Interesting. Except for Virginia, Northern Virginia.
Don't worry about those guys. Well,
they're good.
Too much of a good thing to be a bad thing, right? So
yeah, but I mean, so the county benefits, which it should turn around and benefit the citizens somehow, you would think, maybe not.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so it is a bit. Has anybody ever connected the dots? Like, hey, if you bring in this 100 megawatt data center, it's going to turn into X amount of dollars for the residents. No, right? Nothing like that has happened. Correct.
Well, I think what Bill mentioned that last week in Virginia, he's in Virginia, and then they benefit from the tax revenue, their lower property taxes based on
Right.
revenue that is driven by the data center market.
Yeah.
So it can impact it. Mike, you're out of Atlanta, right? So Atlanta's had they're our second largest data center market. There's some tax benefits there that have stopped, and they're still going, right? I think that was still in place, but I'm sure there's large benefits there as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't exactly know how all the sausage is made on a municipality level, but if they bring revenue in or taxes in, that ultimately has to be trickled down to the community members, right? And the residents of that community. And I'm sure some are different than others, but it could be you're handling veteran veteran type outreach. I can't think of the right word right now, but it could be better parks, better schools. It could be anything that they want to spend money on.
Right.
So
it's never roads. They just keep potholes. Keep potholes.
Right. Yeah. So it would be good to understand that, but you're right. I think it's a lot of that's done. A lot of that's done case by case, right? It's different on whatever county or city that you're in. If you're unincorporated, if you're in a city, there's certainly different benefits.
Yeah, I'm in California. If you come here, you could pay. Your benefit is you get to pay double the taxes, takes twice as long, and maybe you'll get it approved. That's the benefit.
And we have potholes in the roads.
And we have potholes
in the roads. Yeah.
And you pay double. Yeah.
Yeah. Jay, what H5 is national, right? They're all over the place, or do you have a concentration?
Yeah, national, U.S. only. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And so, do you have concentrations in certain markets, or do y'all just look anywhere? It doesn't matter.
We have a concentration of sites in the Pacific Northwest. We have a good concentration of sites on the eastern seaboard area, right from Atlanta up through Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey. Yep. And like I said earlier, David is our COO, is out pounding the pavement for new locations. So he does his due diligence and finds great locations for us. And if it's in the same city that we're already in and it makes sense, we'll go there. If it's a new location, we'll find that. But we are strong in Ashburn. We're strong in the Pacific Northwest. We've got a good presence, like I said, down the eastern seaboard. So yeah, we're a healthy portfolio.
So my question would be, if you're looking for a new site, say you're not in Lincoln, Nebraska, and somehow this is magical site. There's like 4 gigawatts of power. I'm totally full of crap. 4 gigawatts of power in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you're not in that location. What would be your process you're going through as a company on we've got the power check, but if you're trying to acquire that site, what is the underwriting kind of, what makes the determination of whether you take it or not? What does that look like? And anybody can answer that question, but I was just curious. Do we have to have a good vendor base? Do we have to have or does it not matter? Is it just land and power and we can stick it up anywhere? That's what I'm wondering.
Not everywhere works. If you're in a rural area and you don't have people to build it, that could be a problem. You want to be at least near a metropolitan that has a labor force that can not only, people got to work in the data center and they have to live somewhere nearby. So you need to be close to something.
Is that?
Yeah. I would just say that, it really does. It really is case by case, there are certain markets that every single data center use will most likely work, right? So those are the safe markets. Those are like those are the NFL cities, the top, 10 markets. If you have space and power available in those sites, you're from AI, from hyperscale to co-location to network type data centers like Harriet Hotels, and Jay has a couple of those too that they have. They can work in those major markets. But when you get into these secondary and tertiary markets that are a little more rural, you can still make them work, but all the uses start to fall off, and you're limited to just a few types of uses for those. But there may not be as many, but they're still extremely desirable and in need right now. But to Howie's point, if you're building in a desert, and you can't have anybody go out there unless they take a helicopter, it's probably not going to work, even if there's 4 gigs. So these things do have to come back to reality. It's not just power, right? You have to look at things like water and sewer and how many your labor force and just things of that nature. So but the power starts the conversation for sure.
Well, Jay, I'm interested. Jay, when you have a client, what do your clients look for? What's the number one thing they look for? The first thing, the most important thing they're looking for?
A lot of times their geography may be the important one. If they can get space and power and they can get incentives in that geography, they'll look there. Second, probably comes down to dollars per kW. Comes down to dollars per kW. But it does go to the resource portion as well. So, customers, they may have some resources in the city that they don't have a data center in, and they can put those resources in a data center to do work there. So it really just comes down to a few things like that kind of drive customers to certain locations.
Are they location agnostic other than that criteria as far as connectability?
I think, no, that's a very good point. Connectability is a major point for these markets as well. So, a company like a Cloudflare or a Google Fiber, they're going to want to have major connectivity into your data center. So that drives customers like that towards different places. But from a general perspective, the things I mentioned are probably good markers or good beginnings.
Can you build up if you don't have a network have you done that where you actually need to add additional networks to your data center for a client?
Sure. Yeah, we have space, and we have space for additional carriers or network customers to come in and work with us. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So
that kind of goes to the decision for them to come in. Like if we go to a partner or a carrier and say, hey, do you guys want to come into our location? They may take the same amount of time to say, hey, let's do our due diligence and find out if that's a market that we need to serve.
Interesting. Because so you're not paying for them to get there. They're wanting to be there because they can pick up some customers, basically.
It goes both ways. Sometimes they want to be with us and they'll come to us and say, hey, we'd like to deploy with you. And other times we go to them and say, hey, we would like you to deploy here, because maybe we have a customer that uses that carrier or uses that person for their business. Right.
And your leases are pretty long, right? Typically.
Yeah, we like to sign for 7-10 year leases if we can. Yeah. We prefer a long
because it's not easy for them to move. To get in there, it takes these operators, or a while to get in or get out, for that matter.
Well, there's definitely building costs. There's definitely costs to connect in. So yeah, there's a side of it that needs to be done. The due diligence needs to be done from their side to make sure that it makes sense.
Yeah. So not everybody's Elon Musk and can deploy in 2 months. And what's it take a typical, let's say, a megawatt tenant will they use that total capacity when they take a lease, or how long does it take them to ramp up?
It could take them one day. It could take, you're not really going to ramp a megawatt in a day. Unless you have, 15 trailers coming in and you can do it all in 24 hours. But typically there's a ramp on that. And, we kind of see ramps from, a few months to a year sometimes.
Yeah. It's interesting because we think about data centers and they need a ton of power, but not all that power is needed at once. It fluctuates all day long as we put a demand on the servers, or even large language models are running programs that put large demands on the load, so it's unpredictable of where that peak power is, right? Maybe a megawatt user might only use a couple hundred kW in a day until they have a load peak. It's just really interesting because we talk about how much power we're using, but it's only when it's really on demand that we use all that power. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, y'all have to school me. I found this article and I'm like, what the hell is this? So Equinix metal, where they were selling metal. Like what is this stupid metal as a service thing? I don't understand what this means. Y'all have such weird terms in the data center market. Okay, so someone explain me what Equinix metal was and why they closed it. And does anyone know?
It's basically servers in a rack available for customers to rent and use as their own, so they can deploy very quickly and scale rapidly.
Oh, so they're co-locating, but instead of you bringing your server there, they just got them there for you to use?
Yes,
Kind
they
of
have
like-
them in racks ready to go. Yep.
Oh, so like a furnished unit. So it's already got the furniture there. You can just go in. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
schools.
Now
It's usually schools are in a lot of cases schools are doing that because they can't afford to go out and buy a bunch of servers and stand them up and run AI. They can go on to or run whatever. They can go on to a bare metal server and kind of or bare metal provider kind of run everything that way on a cheaper economic model.
So, but it's not AWS. So it's not a cloud thing, right?
Not necessarily. No.
Okay. I'm still confused. So they can rent the servers, but anything running on the server, they have to manage or do or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they'll run their applications and their items on those servers. In some cases, it may be a cloud service that they're running. That just may be who's running it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
It's like Hertz. It's like Amy. It's like Hertz rental car, bare metal. You get in the car, you go, you rent it. It's their car.
Essentially, that's right. Essentially, that's right.
Okay, so it's their car. Okay, so it's their server that they rented.
Yeah. Hertz rents the car. You drive it. You bring it back. You're done. Give it back.
Okay, why did they call it metal? Why can't they just call it like a server? Like I'm like so anyway.
It'd be too confusing.
Right. That's what they named it.
So, but why would Equinix? So the whole article talks about they made this big purchase in 2020 to buy this service called Packet, I think, or something. Anyway, but they closed it I guess in 4 years since they bought it. Or this is the fifth. It's too early, but anyway. 4 years, they close it later. So is the industry moving to where they don't need to rent servers anymore, or are people just bringing their own servers, or what do we know? Kind of what the trend happening in the industry? Why they would not offer that anymore?
Well, I mean, I think it's a situation where there's a lot of innovation in our business, right, in technology. And just because something, makes sense or is a good offering doesn't necessarily mean that it actually makes money, right? So if you think about it, I'm just trying to think. I'm in real estate. It's imagine you're selling office space, and then you're also selling office space that's furnished, and you look at them both, and you're like, okay, they're both doing well, but it costs us so much more to furnish the office space. And do we really offer a service that people are needing, or if it's just more of a convenience? And I know that analogy kind of breaks down a little bit, but they basically made a decision. Just selling the office space is enough. It's our core business. We don't have to have all these other employees go pick out furniture. We don't have to have them, go get a couch, source. They just all they have to do is do what they do best. And we saw this happen probably 6 years ago with managed services. All the data center groups sort of axed managed services. And Jay, I don't know if you guys still do, but it's a very difficult business to be in because it's capital intensive. You have to have employees that monitor all the different services that you're providing. So it's almost like, look, we'd rather be a triple net landlord as much as possible, collect the check, and you guys do whatever you want to do in our space. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
it does.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Why spend the CapEx?
They just chose to focus, which is fine. They chose to focus.
Yeah, we focus on wholesale co-location. We do not focus on managed services. We let that we leave that to the partners who do the best work in the industry.
Interesting. So if the trend is that the data center owners are just providing the building and then the operators are doing different things, that does that cause another complexity because you have more and more parties in the mix in order to provide this service, or is it something that's manageable and it doesn't really matter?
I think it works. I think in our industry, the partnerships work enough that you don't have to think outside and say, oh, we have to do all this ourselves or let somebody do it. I think the partnerships work well enough that it makes it easy for everybody to kind of work together and make things optimized.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So what do you see coming up? We're kind of in the middle of January and transactions are starting to pick up. Everybody's raising capital. It's the year of the data center, right, Howie? What do we see as far as transactions for the year? Has anybody got any estimations on how big the transactions are going to be this year? What was it last year? Does anybody know how many data center transactions happened last year in the U.S.? Anybody have any idea? No, I don't either. I was just curious. I was just wondering how many.
Data center real estate is extremely difficult to keep track of, and it's a pretty secretive business. But for the we have to use a number of different resources to determine. But what goes on this year, I said it before. I think there'll be some M&As, some big M&As. We really didn't have too many last year. I think there'll be a lot more this year. There's obviously a lot of capital coming in with obviously mentioning
it, right?
10, 20 basis point raise in GDP based on data center. There's a lot of things are going to be happening. And I think there'll still be a trend to buy land with power wherever we can find it. But I am an advocate that, self-generation needs to be adopted. How we get there, where and how we do it, I'm not sure. But the other thing I think is going to happen is a lot of these utility companies are going to be in a world of hurt when we get hot days, and that's when the power has a lot more demand on it, and it doesn't operate as efficient. So companies that are going to have a higher demand of power are going to need to find alternative sources to keep their power going. Maybe it's a temporary gas turbine system, and there's a lot of that going on as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the data centers themselves or just regular companies?
Data centers, manufacturing, anything that's got a 5.9 component to it. I think because there can be some concerns about load shedding, and the load shedding is when they ask data centers to go run on their generators so that they're not putting a tax on the on the grid.
Right. Exactly.
Interesting. On all those points, I think the only thing that I would add is we're going to probably see a couple, if not a few, large leases go down with companies like maybe the likes of Microsoft or Google, where you'll start to see these multiple hundreds worth of megawatts being pulled down in these large campuses. I think we're going to start seeing that stuff really, really come on this year and next year in the market.
Do you think that's take place what they haven't built yet?
Yeah, for things that they haven't built yet. I think there's a lot of demand out there for the 150 to maybe 400 megawatts. Maybe, I don't mean to say a lot of demand, but enough that it's going to make headlines.
I mean, because there's a lot of talk about all this money being raised, and like Microsoft plans on spending $80 billion, right? That was what they wanted to do, but they still got to find the deal, right? I mean, they still have to find the piece of land and the property and hook up. And I mean, you might have all the money in the world, but if you can't find a deal, so that was kind of what I was like trying to figure out is, I mean, how many realistic deals do you think are out there?
Well, to Mike's point earlier, Mike, I mean, you mentioned it, right? A lot of powered land opportunities out there. Those are the ones that are going to take the 150 to higher, megawatts. So, that they're there. It's really just now, I think, starting to to really take shape in the market, though. I think that power land piece, in my opinion, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, Howie, in the last 6-8 months is where that's really started to say, hey, this is how we want to do things. Look for big land, look for power on that land, and we'll do things with partners to build space.
Yeah. I think we're there's a lot fewer end users than there are offerings of land out there right now, right?
Oh,
and so
okay.
but you can make the argument a lot of it is what we call affectionately the shadow demand, where groups see the numbers, they see what's happening, and they, Jay, Howie, and I've been in the business for years, but it's amazing. All of a sudden, there's somebody that's popped up out of nowhere, and they have a site, and it's next to a transmission line. But I think you're going to see a lot of, like, just in Georgia alone, we have definitely a lot of demand, probably anywhere from 6 to 8 gigs of demand, and is my personal opinion on that. But there's currently 34 gigs being studied by Georgia Power. So it just kind of gives you an idea that, the demand, this is definitely the year, but I think you're gonna have a lot of, they see the gold rush. There's people out there that are stuck with land options that maybe has softened into office, industrial, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So, I think it'll be an interesting time where really those 4 or 5 large end users are going to be the ones choosing where they want to go and what options make sense for them. And the good news, companies like Jay, they help expedite that process to make it really easy for them to choose the sites that, that have the entitlements, that have the zoning, that have the power, the water, the sewer, and they can basically expedite the process of getting something delivered sooner than if they did it themselves. So I think that's going to be the name of the game this year.
Yeah, the Data Center Knowledge said there's 10 gigawatts being built for this year alone right now that'll be deployed this year. 10 gigawatts. The co-location capacity is 16. To add another 10, it's like it's on fuego.
Yeah.
So they'll come on. That 10 gigawatts is going to come online. Did they already count Elon's? Like, he already checked, he already did his. So did they count that one in that 10? What is it? But he's going to expand his, right? He's planning on expanding his.
He'll double it. Yeah, he'll double that.
Double it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy town. So the thought of the industry, and we talked about a little bit about this last week, but the whole move to quantum computing, and we're just early days with AI. I don't think we would even know what to do with ourselves if we started using quantum computing, but it's probably going to be here faster than we think. And so that alone, I don't know, has anybody heard anything? Jay, have you heard anything about quantum computing and using data centers for using that kind of capacity?
No, not that I can speak to. No, nothing recently. No.
Yeah. I know that IBM has theirs kind of set up where you can basically, as long as you got somebody who knows what they're doing, can pay $100 a minute to run processes on their quantum computer. But I think they're the only one that I heard of, except for a couple of.
I've seen some government requirements that are projecting out 5 years for a space for quantum.
Is 5 years?
5 years is what I was told.
Yeah, so that's right around the corner. I mean, can you imagine? Oh my goodness, the world's going to be a different place. I want my flying car. That's all I have to say. Is I have not had my flying car yet, and it's like ticking me off. I mean, I don't care about Waymo. I just want to fly where I want to go. Why do I have to ride in a car?
You're going to need an edge data center to keep that thing in the air. Speaking of, I've seen a really interesting trend that's popped up in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's talking about, speaking of edge, that the edge is the computers, data centers are going to go away. And those are data centers are like 1.5 megawatts up to 5 megawatt. And that's a majority of our data centers in the US are in that size range, surprisingly. When you look at them, a lot of these data centers are 3-4 megawatts. And so of the, I don't know, how many data centers do we have? I don't even know if we even have an accurate number. What do you think? 2,500, 5,000?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. Maybe not that much.
10,000.
It depends on if you're counting like phone closets in office.
Closets, right? Who's counting? Right.
Yeah.
There's talk about those going away, and I'm like, where did that start? And it's really weird. It's popped up in a number of different conversations where they're saying that they're worried about. Maybe it's just a worry that they will, but I have a hard time believing that
the little data centers that are at 1 or 2 megawatts.
Yeah, the 100,000 square foot, 4 megawatt data center, data center is going to go away. But I can't see that because we still need edge. We need low latency.
Right.
We need connectivity, and that needs to be closer to people and where that compute happens.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
you heard that, Mike? Is that
will they need to be transformed? Will there need to be anything changing in there because of AI, or are they just going to be, they're just the same?
I think, when we talk about AI has got a higher power in the rack component to it, to a standard, a standard data center rack for CPU is around 5 kW per rack. And for GPU deployment, we're up to 50 kW per rack. So there's a lot more power density for GPU, but not every data center is going to have a GPU deployment in it.
But wouldn't they? Jay, are you doing both?
Yeah, we're doing both. We're doing both. We're doing traditional data center space and we're doing AI data center space. It takes an upgrade to the site to make sure that you have water in the site, and to make sure that you have enough cooling in the facility to handle those higher densities. But yeah, we're seeing both. So we have a good mix of both.
So could you retrofit a traditional one and turn it into an AI one, or is it just not possible?
No, you can. It depends on the facility. Some places might have some sites might have constraints that just won't accommodate that type of infrastructure. Right. But I'd say most facility, there's a good percentage of facilities could be retrofitted to have that kind of capacity there. I mean, it would be an expensive upgrade to do if you wanted to change a facility from air cooled to water cooled, but it's doable in a lot of cases. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but as far as the racks themselves, that space, you're not worried about it. It's like your ventilation, your cooling, your electric need, right? And so you'd have to change out those components.
Yeah, you'll have to change out probably a little bit more electric to the site and more cooling capacity. But the floor itself, I mean, if it's a raised floor, you'd have to worry about weight in the cabinets, for example. Maybe they're just a little bit heavier. So you have to make sure the floor is rated properly. On a slab, you've got a lot of room to run there with weights.
Okay. Do you guys have any immersion cooling?
I believe we have a demo of immersion cooling in one of our facilities. Cool. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I'm seeing that trend still go too. And that helps with the cooling component.
It helps with the cooling. Again, another, capital intensive solution, right? You have to have baths for those to sit in. You've got to have your solution. I mean, that's not the cheapest way to go. I mean, if you can densify cabinets and do some sort of a containment for hot or cold aisles, that gets you a lot further along the way. Then you can do some sort of maybe water to the chip or rear door heat exchangers, that kind of thing to help. But there's ways to do it.
All right, I got a data center 101 question. So in the computer or in the rack itself, what exactly gets hot? Is it the chip? Is it the motherboard? What's getting hot? Is it or
It's the whole inside of the computer, all the different workings from
every
the power
single
supply.
component in the computer gets hot at the same time, or
I don't know if it gets hot at the same times, but it heats up, and then basically what you're doing is just pulling cold air across everything to cool it off, right? So, but the hot parts are going to be your power supply, your motherboard, I would imagine. Those types of things are going to get hot. Mike, do you have a input?
The chips are getting that liquid cooling thing, so those are cooling themselves, right? The chips are, right? That's what I heard. So, but then you got to worry about the other components, the power supplies, and all the other pieces to the racks.
I don't know if you have to worry so much about those, but those are things that are heating up. The hottest part is going to be that chip as it winds up to do compute.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I was curious. There you go. That's for all the people who don't know data centers like me. There you go.
You're getting it. You're getting it.
It's all hot.
It's all hot.
It's all hot, right?
Yeah.
Everything's hot.
The fan motor, the everything is.
Everything heats up. But the largest concentration of that heat is going to be at the chip. Yeah.
At the chip level. So yeah, I mean, well, maybe we'll have someone on here to talk about how does it keep it from melting. I guess it has to cool itself, right? So it doesn't melt anything else. I don't know how hot it gets. No idea. No clue.
Well, they start to lose performance once they get to a certain temperature, right? Yeah. So if you want maximum performance, it's like your car overheating. You gotta be able to keep it cool. So, but it is an interesting thing, and really our world is also just your TCO, right? And how much it costs to cool these things. We look at that, try to decide, it's not just about how much you can cool, but how much does it cost to cool. And
right.
Some of the cooling take more power. So if you're using your power for cooling, that's not good because you need it for your compute.
Your computing.
So, That's a great point, Mike. Yeah, right. It's like, okay, I can use more water, but I'll use less electricity, or I can use more electricity and less water. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
And so to solve the power capacity problem, it's either you solve making HVAC super efficient, right, or your cooling super efficient, or you make your computers super efficient, or you do both, right? But that's the big deal, right? Is understanding that, or other ways to cool. So explain
free cooling, free cooling. Ambient air being in
northern Sweden. We're at the Arctic Circle.
Greenland. New America.
We're taking over Greenland anyway. Did you not know? So we're just going to stick all our data centers in Greenland.
Canada. We're going to merge.
And Alaska. Anywhere.
Go you Huskies. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of people who live in Greenland. So if you were trying to get something done, I'm sure it's a little bit different.
There's data centers there.
Yeah, in Greenland, I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are. Well, you know what? Here is I've got it. I've solved the problem. We're gonna have robots fix the data centers so we can put them anywhere and we'll stick them, and so we don't have people have to go fix anything. We'll just have the robots fix them.
Yeah. There you go.
And then we'll stick them all in the Arctic Circle so we can melt the ice cap. Oh, wait, I didn't solve the problem again. I didn't solve it because we're melting the ice cap more because we stuck all the data centers on where the ice needs to be. Okay, I just ripped it.
Well, then you have some hydro power though, so that's always good.
Yeah. Okay. No, but it's all going to be, wind and solar. No, I'm totally kidding.
Right.
Totally kidding. All right. No, that's cool. All right. Look at that. Our hour is done. See, awesome. It's been such a fun conversation. And there it goes. There goes the hour. So, all right. So tell people how they can get a hold of you should they choose to do that.
Okay, Amy, again, thanks so much for having me again this week. I can be reached at j.huzzy at H5 Data Centers, and that's JAY.HU, S as in Sam, S as in Sam, EY at h5datacenters.com. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And call me first before Mike. We'll call Mike after. But Howard.Berry, BERRY at Avison, AVISON, YOUNG, young.com. And I'm just kidding. Mike's a great guy too. Call him first. He's smart.
No, not at all. There's plenty out there, guys. There's plenty.
There's plenty going around.
Yeah. So mike.lash@cbre.com. Amy, thanks so much for having us. This has been
Yeah,
great.
thanks, Amy.
It's been super fun. Well, thanks for coming on. And there we
Amy.
go. All right. See if
Bye.
I know what I'm doing. Bye, everyone.
Hey, Mike.